Imagine this. It's night. For blank walls, the quiet hum of electricity, the scent of anticipation hanging dense in the air. You walk across the floor, each step an assault on your nerves, your brain inventing new ways to betray you. The bed, perfectly made, seems an altar of expectation and potential disaster. You are acutely aware of your body, how you move, how you breathe, the way your hands tremble slightly when outstretched. Your partner's gaze flickers toward you, curiosity and unspoken questions suspended in the space between. Nowhere to run. Each heartbeat thuds like a warning. Every idea you ever had about sex, relationships, or intimacy is suddenly suspect, a deck of cards crumpling in the face of reality. What if it's all a lie? What if every thought you rehearsed, everything you believed about confidence, seduction, or desire was nothing but a fragile shield dissolving the instant skin meets skin? Tonight, with nowhere to hide, you are naked in every sense. There is a myth so deeply embedded in culture and consciousness it can almost seem like biology. Men are always ready, perpetually desiring, naturally bold, unafraid. Women are enigmatic, coy, passive, forever being chosen rather than choosing. Perhaps you lived this story, adopted its scripts, let it shape your behaviors. But here, beneath the weight of this expectation, a tremor starts. What if fear is universal? What if it doesn't discriminate between gender, age, or experience? The truth, science and street philosophy agree. Anxiety, uncertainty, shame, confusion, they haunt everyone. The old belief crumbles. Sex isn't a performance for validation or conquest. It's an encounter with your deepest vulnerabilities, the raw interface between mind, body, and the emotional residue of every scar and longing. If you're willing to confront this new idea, you glimpse not a battlefield of roles, but a landscape of shared risk, mutual uncertainty, and wild potential. Here, every myth you outgrow is a new form of freedom. You live in a world that teaches you to count your looks, your conquests, your failures, your stamina, your appeal. Men tally victories, technique, moments of performance. Women secretly compare, measure desirability, compete even with imagined rivals. Underneath every word, every joke, every flirtation, a dark current runs, am I enough? On bad days it's a scream, on good days a faint whisper. You notice how effortlessly this scarcity mentality shapes the smallest habits, the way your eyes dart around a room, the mental catalog you keep, the passing shadows of jealousy or pride. You internalize rules that tell you to hide your fear, to posture, to never admit uncertainty. The brain, obsessed with loss and threat, builds avoidance into muscle memory. You begin to avoid honesty, lean on routines, letting every interaction become a negotiation with inadequacy rather than a chance for connection. Every relationship becomes both a mirror and a minefield. You think perhaps that confidence is built upon mastery, hours of study, practice, analysis, careful rehearsal of every possible move. You've spent years collecting strategies, magazine tips, expert advice, maybe even therapy or podcasts, all in hope that if you're clever enough, you'll outsmart rejection, dodge awkwardness, and finally become unshakable. But then, in the moment of truth, all this armor begins to crack. The neuroscience is clear. True confidence is not about the absence of fear, but the capacity to risk, even knowing you might fail spectacularly. It is the moment you say, I don't know what you want, and I'm afraid to ask, but I'm here anyway. Mastery brings competence, but not courage. Courage is refusing to lie that one day you'll be ready and perfect. It is the raw nerve of showing up, trembling and exposed, and still choosing to connect. This is where the habit of self-affirmation stops being a ritual and starts being a revolution, rewriting your brain pathways as you go. The mind is a library of every awkward silence, every failed brush of the hand, every flash of disappointment, real or imagined. You find yourself replaying these moments, turning them into warnings. Don't let it happen again. This turns into avoidance, subtle, insidious, often invisible. Maybe you joke to diffuse tension, shift the topic if things get too personal, push away with sarcasm or busy work. Psychology calls this self-sabotage a loop of conditioning. What once protected you now poisons new possibility. The brain craves safety, It invents strategies to avoid even the possibility of embarrassment. But what you avoid, you reinforce. The more you dodge discomfort, the deeper the habit digs. Your emotional habits fossilize, keeping you from seeing or touching the raw, luminous nerve of intimacy. Only by stepping out of rehearsal and into honest improvisation do you interrupt the cycle and let a different self emerge, a self that can be seen and touched, even in uncertainty. You lie next to your partner, and instead of surrendering, your mind becomes a merciless analyst. Every touch is dissected. Is this what they want? Am I doing it right? Should I move, wait, lead, follow? You construct a split within yourself, the part performing, the part observing, the part judging the first two. Psychologists call it spectatoring, and it robs you of real experience, keeps you at arm's length from your own pleasure. Instead of immersion, there's calculation. Instead of passion, there's possibility of critique. The body can never relax fully when the mind is desperate for control. Even silence bristles with the question, have I failed? You know this posture, poised to impress, terrified to disappoint. The habit of self-surveillance becomes a prison. Breaking free requires a new practice, not becoming flawless, but allowing yourself to be fully present, even if that means revealing your awkward, unfinished self, raw and uncertain, but alive. You want to believe that desire is telepathy, that longing will simply transmit itself through a look, a sigh, a gesture. But that is just another myth. The truth is, almost no one says what they really feel in those most vulnerable moments. You hesitate, afraid your truth will be too much or not enough, or precisely the wrong kind of confession. I'm nervous. I don't know what you like. I wish it lasted longer. I wish it felt deeper. These words catch in your throat. Instead, you say nothing or mask honesty with jokes or silence. Avoidance masquerades as composure. Over time, this absence of real communication builds a silent fortress between you and your partner. The fusion of brain and emotion demands risk. Vulnerability, spoken out loud, can kick open the door to connection or shatter comfort forever. But if no one starts, both remain trapped, misunderstood, unsatisfied, longing for a different kind of safety that only the light of shared truth can build. Go far enough back and you find the roots of shame, parents' warnings, friends' mockery, the lurking shadow of cultural expectation. Maybe it was a comment in adolescence. Maybe it was body language at the wrong moment, a look of disappointment or disgust. These early signals become the blueprint for your emotional architecture. Soon, every experience in intimacy is filtered through them. A touch is no longer just a touch, it is a test. A rejection is not temporary, but confirmation of every doubt you've ever held. The brain remembers pain more vividly than pleasure, and so, brick by brick, you build walls reinforced by the silent conviction, I am not enough. Even in a loving relationship, shame can ambush you, unannounced, in the simplest gesture or smallest imperfection. Undoing this habit means seeing shame not as personal failure, but as a script that isn't really yours, a haunting voice you can finally choose to ignore, or confront, or rewrite. Consider the couple who never argues, at least not out loud. Their silences are elegant, practiced, almost beautiful in their restraint. Each time one reaches out with a need, the other turns away, just slightly, offering a polite smile, a quick joke, an efficient distraction. Nights blur together. Sex becomes a quiet transaction, passion replaced by procedure. Unhappiness is a ghost that slips between them, a presence felt but never addressed. These are the habits of emotional withdrawal, micro-choices piling up like dust. With time, no single moment seems worth naming, yet a gulf opens wide. The mind learns avoidance as self-protection. The brain automates withdrawal as a habit. The tragedy is not in the conflict, but in the fact that neither dares articulate what they truly want. More touch, more truth, more risk. Liberation begins the moment one of them speaks the dangerous sentence. Until then, they are prisoners of their own unspoken routines. Attraction is sacred risk. Every act of reaching out, every flirtation, every first confession or unguarded laugh is a gamble. You wager your dignity, your comfort, your fantasy of control. Modern psychology and ancient philosophy agree. The mind craves safety, yet deep attraction defies it, always. The brain's oldest circuits urge you to retreat, to maintain equilibrium, to cling to habits that minimize vulnerability. But desire is not an equation, it's an embrace of uncertainty. No script exists for real connection. Your greatest moments, sexual or otherwise, aren't the ones where you felt in charge, but those where you surrendered expectations and risked seeing and being seen without armor. That's where the boundary blurs between fear and exhilaration. If you want the reward of true intimacy, you must first invite risk into the room, set a place at the table for doubt, and trust that what happens next will reveal parts of yourself you never imagined were waiting. You remember every time you reached out and your hand was not taken. Every teasing laugh that made your insecurity sting. The echo chamber of rejection lives deep inside, wired into your brain by repetition, caution, and self-preservation. It teaches you to hesitate, to expect disappointment before it arrives, to pre-write the script of your own defeat. So when closeness is possible, you brace for failure. Your mind, trained by memory, whispers, "This will end like before." But the science is ruthless. The brain grows what it repeats. Rejection, replayed enough times, becomes not just a story you remember, but a filter you peer through at every opportunity. Relationships become prediction machines for old pain. You act careful, distant, ironic, all to avoid the moment when you'll be proven unworthy again. But this armor is heavy. Each new intimacy is burdened with ghosts of those who didn't choose you, didn't want you, or left you unclaimed. Liberation begins by refusing to let these old echoes script the present. There are moments where your mind simply revolts. You sense expectation from your partner, from the room, from your own need for connection. Suddenly, your thinking mind goes blank, your body turns numb. You are present but absent, you perform but feel nothing. This is the freeze response, a legacy of ancient survival wiring. In the language of psychology, you are protecting yourself from imagined threat, the embarrassment of failure, or the pain of not meeting some arbitrary standard. Your brain floods you with stress hormones, guiding you quietly out of danger's way by shutting down everything that makes you interesting and alive. You repeat lines, nod, move minimally. You long for anything, some genuine spark to break through. But the habits are so old and so strong, you become a shadow of yourself. The secret is not to banish this freeze, but to recognize it as a signal. Every emotional shutdown says something vital is here. If you listen, you can find the way back. You learned early, to be a real man is to initiate, to be in control, to be a desirable woman is to be pursued, to inspire longing but never ask too directly. These roles are stories so ancient they feel like truth. But when the moment comes, neither script fits cleanly. Maybe you want to be chosen, to be safe. Maybe you want to take the lead, but honest curiosity paralyzes you. With every touch or silence, the roles blur. Am I enough if I want? Am I right if I wait? The confusion is thick, sticky, maddening. The brain, craving clarity, pushes you to act out a stereotype simply because it's easier than risking the unknown. But with every time you force yourself into a mask, your confidence drains and your body rebels. Intimacy becomes a test of performance instead of a meeting of two truths. Breaking the cycle means rewriting gender itself in your intimate world. A revolution not in society but inside the mechanics of your own thinking. Frustration is the beginning of clarity. When you finally see the patterns of avoidance, withdrawal, performance, silence, you face an inflection point. You realize you have been living on autopilot, letting your habits and history dictate the script. But awareness is a blade. It can cut through old knots. Psychology calls this metacognition, seeing yourself from the outside, catching habits in the act. The moment you notice, this is me freezing, this is me performing, this is me hiding, is the moment things change. The next step is risk. Name what's happening aloud. I'm scared. I am not sure I know what you like. This is new to me. What happens? Maybe chaos. Maybe laughter. Maybe, finally, connection. You don't erase old habits overnight, but every time you notice, you reclaim a piece of your brain from yesterday's conditioning. That is the birthplace of new intimacy. Your mind, for once, becomes your ally, not your warden. Confidence is widely misunderstood. It's not bravado, not technical prowess, not a shield. True confidence is the practiced willingness to be seen before you feel ready, especially when you are trembling, hesitant, unsure. To ritualize vulnerability means to make it a habit, a regular offering to yourself and others. You admit confusion, you risk embarrassment, you say the words you swore would stay hidden. Each time you do, the neural networks of fear shrink and the networks of play, openness, and trust grow instead. Neuroscience names oxytocin, endorphins, even dopamine as the chemistry of this social bravery. But you feel it as warmth, expansion, a moment when you and your partner can laugh, stumble, and keep going. Habit by habit, confidence stops being a mask and becomes your baseline. No one is fearless, but the bravest become skilled at showing up in the storm over and over until weather is just weather and intimacy feels like home. You wait, sometimes for years, for a sweeping moment to change everything. But real transformation stirs in quieter ways. It's in the micro-acts, the gentle risks you take when the room is silent and your heartbeat thunders. Instead of holding back, you voice a forbidden thought. When you want to shrink, you lean in. Intimacy rewires itself not by the explosions of revelation, but by 1,000 subtle acts of courage. The hesitant yes, the tremulous no, the trembling hand that chooses connection over caution. Even looking someone in the eyes, holding your own uncertainty without flinching, becomes a rebellion against the old order of withdrawal. Science shows the brain changes with repetition, and every microdare, every time you override the learned reflex to hide, remaps neural pathways. Practice gives birth to bravery. With every small step, you outgrow your armor and reclaim possibility. Vulnerability becomes less a gamble, more a habit, a living proof that trust is built from a mosaic of tiny, daily choices. Your skin remembers every story the mind wants to forget. Sometimes sexuality becomes a landscape of inhibition, tension in the jaw, nervous laughter, flinching from what once felt natural. Your body has inherited cultural scripts, moments of shame, sometimes the residue of an old lover's words. Touch becomes a rehearsed performance, not free play. Reclaiming your body starts with permission, the slow, deliberate act of noticing what brings you pleasure, comfort, or peace. It is philosophical, not mechanical, a stance that says, my body is worthy. My desires are honest. You learn to listen to breath and heartbeat as guides, to approach sensation as discovery instead of duty. Mindfulness here is not meditation, but presence in pulse and skin. With each deliberate, welcome touch, alone or with someone you trust, you edit the old memories and inscribe new ones. The body remembers safety, warmth, laughter, and real contact. In this territory, you find that pleasure is not a performance, but a return to truth, to home, to yourself. You grow up learning that desire must be curated, masked, performed. There are scripts for what is sexy, what is appropriate, what you are allowed to want. Yet true intimacy calls for a rebellion, erotic honesty. This is not just transparency, it is the art of showing your unscripted self. Admitting when you feel awkward, when your mind wanders, when your pleasure doesn't match expectation. Naming fantasies without apology, allowing pauses instead of forced smoothness. The courage to say, I like this, or that doesn't work for me. Real erotic honesty begins where performance ends. In the raw space of mutual uncertainty, connection blooms. You and your partner trade masks for truths, and sex becomes a place for play, comfort, even laughter, not just choreography. The rewards? Relief from tension and intimacy that renews itself. Over time, the habit of honesty transforms the landscape. Anxiety shrinks, pleasure deepens, and the urge to perform gives way to the desire to simply be. Authenticity, not technique, becomes your sexiest skill. You realize finally that intimacy is never a solo act. Yes, you bring your habits and histories, but so does your partner, their own fears, joys, desires. Intimacy thrives when you approach it as co-creation, not competition. You trade old scripts for new experiments, ask questions instead of presuming answers. You become explorers together, curious, occasionally lost, but willing to share the map. Co-creation means inventing rituals, share laughter after awkward moments, check-ins for comfort, improvising ways to say, I see you, that feel fresh each time. When you slip, face insecurity, or falter, you do so together, learning that connection is built not from perfection, but from resilience. The myth of effortless chemistry dies quietly, replaced by the daily work of learning and adjusting. In these shared acts, something profound forms, a bond stronger than performance or expectation. Creation is ongoing. Intimacy is alive. This is the art of loving well, two people building and renewing with every breath. This journey through fear, ritual, honesty, and touch does not make you flawless. Instead, it gives you a sanctuary, a space safe enough for imperfection, abundant enough for growth. Lasting transformation doesn't mean never struggling. It means knowing, deep within, that you can bring your whole self, awkward, bold, ashamed, hopeful, and still be met with acceptance. You and your partner build a relationship flexible enough to weather storms, but solid enough to feel like home. The cycles of freezing, performing, and daring become familiar, not scary. You learn to catch yourself, to soothe, and to risk again. Growth is found in returning and showing up one more time, in letting the body, the mind, and the heart all be present. The science and the poetry agree. Your intimacy grows as you nurture it. Every honest conversation, every shared vulnerability, every moment of co-creation strengthens it. Here, in this sanctuary, transformation is not finished. It simply begins again.